stand out. You can't stand it. I stand up for mine. You can't stand it. Please take a seat.
All right, we back. Player T, that's me, Hollywood in the hood. Doing it really big. You see who I got with me right here. Really no introduction necessary, but if you're still sleeping, I got brother Polight right here from New Covenant. How you doing, sir?
Peace. Doing good.
Hey, now, brother Polight, now, I'm glad you're here for a reason, man, because we hear a lot about you, you know, but it's a lot of people here that really wanted to ask you some questions, so we really appreciate you coming down to the hood being here. Now, you know, fill us in, because they hear Brother Polight, they don't know if he's a conscious speaking brother, they don't know if he's a paid brother, they don't know if he's an agent. Who is Brother Polight?
I am the author of 90+ books. I do comparative studies of monotheistic religions in retrospect to them being influenced by cultures of antiquity. And in addition to that, I'm a celebrity mentor, specializing in financial advisory as well as in holistic health.
Right. Now, he ain't lying about the celebrity mentorship. Mentored such people like Ron Artest. Am I lying?
That's a fact. That's a fact.
No, the brother gave him all the props in the world. Yeah, he's a mentor of mine. He said he had many mentors, but Brother Polight is one, and he praised Brother Polight for his intelligence. You know, what intelligence are they speaking on, Brother Polight?
Well, like I said, it entails holistic health, and by holistic health, we mean engage in health in its entirety, not just exclusively on the means of eating good food or drinking good food, but incorporating sunlight into the regimen and also good people. Because people can make you just as sick as the food you're trying to avoid.
Right. Huh? Yeah. No doubt. Now, Brother Polight, I ain't trying to put you on the spot or nothing. You're not a spring chicken, but you're not an old, overdone chicken either. You know, so, you know, to be as advanced as you are and to be as polished you are, you know, when did that start and how did it start?
Well, I credit that to my first wife. I've been with her officially now since March 9th for 19 years. And
you credit that to her?
I credit that to her.
What did you learn from her that helped you polish up?
Her belief in me. When I was in prison, I was being locked up on several occasions, and each time she was there for me. She expressed that love at a very young age. We've been together since 12 and 13 years old. And so what happens is, on one of my last, like, real big cases, she took 2 jobs, and when I came home, she said, I know I can't compensate for the amount of money you make in the streets, but I believe you could save you and us. You could save yourself, and you could save us as a team if you just invest time and study. And I'm willing to give you 1 check out of one of my jobs, and I'll work a second job. And if you need some of that check, I'll be there for you. And so she says, just stop hustling, and I will buy you the books and whatever resonates with you.
You were hustling in the street?
Yeah, big time, in Brownsville, Brooklyn. So she said, all you have to do is just read these books. I don't know what they're going to do for you. I don't have a clue myself. I didn't read them, but when you was locked up, I was going around trying to find out what kind of food I can give you. And the best thing I can come up with is knowledge. And I'm sure if you digest the information in one of these books, you'll find your way and you'll lead us. And so I looked at her because she was pretty hood at that time. Okay. You know, very, very hood, move her neck around, strip her mouth, you know, curse me out, very jealous, you know, hood stuff, you know, young people go through. You know what I'm saying? Perm on their head and everything, right? Yeah. And, you know, we wasn't vegan, none of that. So I thought that was very significant, that not only did she have the integrity and the patience to keep a relationship with me despite my inconsistencies as a man, even just being out because I'm constantly being locked up, but more rather the fact that she was directing me in a positive direction, and in addition to that, she seen something in me I ain't see in myself. And so I couldn't help but to feel it was worth a shot because I was trying to find out what did she see in me. Did you feel that you
need to repay her by becoming this person she knew you could be?
Absolutely. You know, my first several months, my first 2-3 months of study, I was just trying to find out what she saw in me that she believed I could do something other than hustling.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, what would make her work 2 jobs? Like I said, she's not a pushover. So to see her make the sacrifice to work 2 jobs and give me 1 check and use the other check towards buying books.
Well, what
I
kept
thought
what
it was
kept you
deep.
grounded as you grew in knowledge, as you grew in experience at the things you were, accomplishing there? What kept you grounded to where you didn't flip on her and got the big head and she just gave up on you?
She gave me a conscience. I ain't have one prior. I hated black people. I hated white people. When
You hated black people and white people.
yeah, when you in the hood, it's a jungle, and
Yeah.
people may not like the animal.
Sound like me.
You know what I'm saying? People may. Yeah, people may not like the animal analogy, but whenever you have a people lacking in resources, living compact amongst each other, eventually they turn on each other. And you don't exactly need a high IQ to survive in the hood. You need animal instincts,
What were some of the main tenets of your study once you did take up study?
I just do my best to complete a book and not leave them incomplete. That was all. I just had to complete books and get the whole idea. I never was completing books. I read 2-3 pages and I left it alone. So I really buckled down and said, I'm gonna do this for my wife. I don't get it, but at least I'll be able to tell her I tried. She said, man, you got 3-4 months at least. Just try it. I went the duration of 6 months because I started really liking to read, and I remembered I used to like to read. But I was homeless at one point. I was in a shelter. I was in juvenile detention facilities. And also, as I got older, I wanted to be in prison. So I lost sight that I used to be a valedictorian in elementary school. And I was in honors classes. And that kind of brought me back. And my grandmother, before she passed away, whenever I used to have a very bad temper, she used to make me write out from introspection why I thought the way I thought and why I felt the way I felt. I had to do that every time I disrespected anybody. That's for the time she was around when I was young. So it started bringing back that urge to write again, because I was forced into writing. Every time I made an error, I had to always do a 2 to 5 page essay on my error and why I arrived at that error and what I can do to possibly evade making the same mistake again. So that's something that's part of my edification from real young.
Let me ask you, because you have several young children. Do you apply that in your young children's lives now? Those principles.
Well, I homeschool my children because I don't believe I don't believe the curriculum that's being administered in school caters specifically to our interests and needs as a people of the diaspora.
How could one be confident to do that, Polight? Because everybody I know, they can feel that, but then they don't do it. It's some kind of either lack of confidence or lack of resources, or what do you think it is?
Well, we are our greatest resource, and there's something that we have to understand is that nobody in a school system can edify your children the way the parents should, at least in your inception. So we could learn how to carry a one and how to pronounce words, but what about the lessons that a parent gives their child before they send them off into the world? So we gotta understand that children are in the womb subject to the emotions that diffuses into their system via the mother. And this is going on for 9 months conventionally. For them to be brought into this world, the umbilical cord cut, and for them to be on maternal leave for 5 or 6 months, then to be suspended in atmospheres amongst strangers after having been in the womb for 9 months, relying on the mother for every single thing, feeling her impressions, feeling her emotions, and then now, after 6 months, she goes back to work and that child is in the presence of strangers. That psychologically scars them from the very beginning, and we wonder why our children betray us later on in the future.
Yeah. Now, give us a perspective on your covenant with that, because I have a feeling there's a lot of people that feel the way you do and they like to follow the principles you do. So that leads me to wonder just how effective your reach is. Give us a perspective on New Covenant.
Well, we teach in the language that I created, Kuina Agunu, which means spiritual economics. And unfortunately, because we subject to capitalism, that means we're going to have to run economics and spirituality concurrent. Because if we don't have economic freedom, we don't have the spiritual freedom to read, write, study, meditate, introspect, contemplate, or even travel at our will, because we have to work the job. And these jobs are asking in or around 40 hours of us out of a week.
Right.
Our time is being consumed. You feel me? To go to work is 8 hours, 9 to 5 or so. To drive there, probably an hour. To drive back is an hour. That's 10 hours. Let's presume we want to cook an hour. Let's presume we want to clean an hour. You know, so let's say we want to sleep. They say 8 hours, which is a third of our life, but let's say 6. So we had 12, 6. You feel what I'm saying?
Right.
And then we're going to wind up having, like, very little time to ourselves.
Yes.
You know, and that's not right. You know, we didn't even consider washing up. So if we go to work and the time it takes to go to work and back, that's 10 hours. And if we sleep, that's 16 hours. And if we cook and clean, that's 18 hours. And then if we wash up, 19 hours, right? And then now we're down to 5 hours. Now, who gets that 5 hours? We should be able to socialize with our significant other, our friends, our child or children. So, you know, we're running out of time. And where does the meditation, the prayer, the study come in?
Right.
You know, so now when we get free time, we're scrambling on that one day off of work. And sometimes we just got to sleep because we're overwhelmed mentally. So we have to get economic freedom in our spiritual acquisition because of the type of culture that we're living in. It's a debt culture.
Right.
And the only way we could thrive is through debt. So if I need an education like everyone else needs an education, you got to get into debt. If I need to drive to go to work, I probably have to get a car note. I have to go into debt. Sure. I definitely need a place to live. Right. So I need a mortgage most cases. Yeah. I have to go into debt. And in fact, if I want to build credit, the best way to build credit is to get into debt. Yeah. So it's a debt wealth society. So they keep our mind locked in on physical things like homes, like cars, you know, going to school and buying these books. And where is the time being invested into us as a species? We understand that, again, when you have a people lacking in resources and limited to environment and don't have the educational tools that's necessary for them to transcend the depths of poverty, they oftentimes will digress and turn on each other. They will mistakenly see each other as the reason why they're having hardship without really understanding the system that's put into place to make them have those hardships.
So what do you do, like some of the things you do to address that? Like, you know, what is it about in your covenant? Is you pooling resources or what?
Well, we raise people's financial literacy. We teach them about S&P, the Standard & Poor's, also understanding the statistics that are most significant in retrospect to them being able to climb out the depths of poverty, particularly being amongst the 5%, which is where wealth begins. We're not talking about the 5%ers as the spiritual Black Muslim movement, more rather in economics, the 5%ers are anybody that's making $150,000 or more a year. That's where wealth begins. And then, so now you have $32,000 a year for a family of 4 is where poverty begins. And $15,000 a year for an individual is where poverty is at. So first we just have to understand the rules of engagement. And then there's over $100,000 gray area space between, wherever they want to call that. So the goal is to make sure we are making at least $150,000 a year. And by economics,
everybody in your organization.
Well, that's the goal. Yeah. Because as far as wealth building is concerned, wealth begins at $150,000 a year per the individual. And you're supposed to be able to invest at least 1/3 of your income without living below your means, which would be about $50,000 a year. Okay. So we want to understand those dynamics. Plus, we want to create our own annuities, which is like recurring interest coming, and create our own type of pension plans. Because when we study the Standard & Poor's S&P index, we come to terms with the fact that the money we're promised 30 years later after retirement, we will get, but it won't have the same depth.
Depreciated.
Exactly, it'd be depreciated. So what happens is if I am anticipating $100,000 when I retire, it'll be worth about $40,000 when I get it due to food inflation and hyperinflation. So we want to prepare our brothers and sisters because they barely see tomorrow, so they definitely ain't thinking about next year or 20 or 30
so
from now.
I take it to that end. You have coursework, you have training, and then you actually take your knowledge and apply it in the real world with financing things that you finance.
That's right.
Portfolios.
Well, the thing is, we teach to control everything, own nothing. So when we pour on, we lacking.
Control everything, own nothing.
Control everything, own nothing. You know, when we young, we want everything in our name. We want absolutely everything. You know, we lived in somebody's house, and it was like, I can't wait till I get out and get my own crib. Can't wait to have my own car. You know, and then when you start making money, you realize, no, you don't want your name and everything. You know, so we teach them about setting up trust, which is property held on behalf of one so that another may benefit. So we show them how to create legal persons, which is a synonym for a company or for an entity or for a legal fiction. And the reason why companies are considered persons or legal fictions is because they have the same rights as you minus the physical body. So you get to void yourself from certain liability.
Oh, okay.
And without hindering your credit or your personality. And personality is also a legal term that deals with the manner in which the business thrives. That's the term personality. And the reason why the person, which is the company, has a personality is to protect you, the actual entity, from liability. Why? Because we're looking to change our status. Yeah. And in law or in economics, status is a state. So we're looking to change our status or correct our status. We're looking to correct the manner in which we acquire property, because we are not the benefactors when we purchase property as debtors as opposed to secured parties. Debtors, according to the UCC code, UCC 9-105 in parentheses D, can only conditionally own property. A condition in real estate is when someone sells you something under false pretense and doesn't let you know that other people are looking to invest in your debt obligation. So there's so many different nuances to real estate that work to our disadvantage, and because of the presumption of law, which is a lack of responses and admission of guilt, and ignorance of the law is no excuse. So that means that if you're not aware that they're doing something illegal, technically it is legal when they perpetrate it against you. Color of law. A color of law. So now, since that's the case, it now becomes incumbent that we educate our people about better strategy when it comes to the acquisition of properties. And that brings us back to spirituality, because if you look up the word spirituality, you'll see this term called spiritualities at the very bottom. And what is spiritualities? By definition, anybody looks up the word spiritualities, it's property acquired by the church or the revenue generated by the church.
Is that right?
So it
ain't what you thought it was.
Exactly. So there's two different types of spirituality being practiced. Right. You know, the church is practicing spirituality because they're getting building after building and raising money per collection plate. We're practicing a broke form of spirituality.
You say you got to be aware of these conscious black people that always want to make, black consciousness synonymous with being poor.
That's correct.
And you always speak on that. And you spoke to that fact about monetizing our relationships.
That's a fact.
And how important. Speak to that, and then you got another question.
Well, we definitely want to monetize our relationships because family is business. So one of my sayings is love is law and family is business. Love has to be a covenant. It has to be a contract that is mutually beneficial for both parties. There has to be some kind of reciprocity, a fair exchange between two. Both must be
words
the
like trust.
That's right. And a trust, like I said, these words all have emotional context to it as well as economic context to it. So in relationships, we're always looking for trust, sense of security, bonding, sharing, friendship. But in law, we know a friend is one who invests in you and one you are willing to invest in. So imagine if we took on the legal context of the word friend. A friend is one that you're willing to invest in, who can, and one that is willing to invest in you, that can. Now, if we look at our friends or we look at our phone and we look at all the people we call friends, we'll realize a lot of those people can't invest in us. It's just not possible, whether because of the lack of the knowledge or the lack of resources. And then two, we may not even want to invest in them. So by legal context, we wouldn't have a lot of friends. And then your best friend would be the one that you benefit the most from through business experience. So that's a friend. And then a trust, like I said, a man and a woman get together and they say, you know what, let's get into a business and let's find something that we think will be of huge profit between both of us. Right. Well, when we find something, an asset, let's say a house. Mm-hmm. Let's say the man and the woman see a house and they say, you know what, this house can really benefit us financially. So that man and that woman say, you know what, let's go into contract and let's invest in this house as partners. That's called consideration. In every relationship, you want to have consideration. Right? And then now when that property starts making you money because you got tenants, that means the property is appreciating. So we all want appreciation in relationships, right? So now you have consideration, appreciation, but you want to hold this property in trust because it's part of the contract amongst the two of you, because it's property held on behalf of one so that another may benefit. So now the property is held in trust. It's already appreciating. in light of the consideration, which is a contract when two parties agree that they can both benefit from an asset. So we have consideration, which is the contract, that then germinates into the trust, which is an instrument that identifies property being held for one on behalf of the other so that it may benefit. And then we have the appreciation because we're making money. So consideration, appreciation, trust, and then it's going to be held in the security. A security is a paper certificate that attests to ownership and equity, as in the case of a stock, or ownership of a bond, as in the case of a debt obligation, which has tradable derivatives, meaning it can be sold in stock. All that merely means is that it may have a QSIP, or a Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedure. All that merely means, the key word is security, a security and certificate. All that tells me is that there's some paper that says the asset is worth X amount of money, and this paper is worth that same amount of money because we can't put that asset in our pocket. Like, for instance, original money, like real money, right, was called paper certificates, not Federal Reserve notes. Notes implies somebody owes money. So you used to have a $5 gold certificate or silver certificate or $10 silver certificate, and you'll be able to turn that paper in exchange for the silver or the gold that it was worth. Right. Because in Article 8 of the United States Constitution, that it has to be a standard of measures and weights or backing for the money. Right. So we wouldn't walk around and say, man, I want a piece of bread. Let me see if I could cut this gold into a small piece in exchange for the bread. No, we have a paper certificate that represents the equity of what I already have. Right. So in that particular case, we will have a security agreement. Yeah. So in a relationship, now we have security, we have trust, we have consideration, we have appreciation, we have friendship. And in this agreement is going to identify how much of that property I own and how much of that property she owns. So in the event that we should separate, she's not an economic slave to me. She will be the benefactor of this exchange. And in that, we're talking about the bond and sharing. Yeah. Okay, so now the bond is a debt obligation because as a man, this property is going to be a form of dowry. So I'm going to say, even if we break up, you can get X amount of a percentage of the revenue that this property appreciates. So that's a form of dowry. So now we got bonding, we got sharing, we got a sense of security, we got friendship, we got trust, consideration and appreciation. We got everything you want in a relationship, and that's what I mean by monetizing your relationship in Lovers Law, Families Business.
You got something that's taking issue with you, man. You blowing up. You didn't move out the hood. You from Brooklyn, man.
That's right.
Speak on that.
Well, I totally get it. I totally understand it. We grow insecure sometimes when we see people change. And many people say, man, you change. We want that old Polight. And I'm like, you know.
Polight, you from the hood, man.
That's right. And I always say, if you want that old Polight, read the books that I wrote during that time. Watch the DVDs when I taught at that time. Because the one thing that's constant in the universe is change. The best thing that I have going for me is that I keep changing, so you can compare and contrast where I was 10 years ago. And hopefully it doesn't look the same way 10 years later. Right. You know, that's empowering. Right. You know?
I think somebody had a question. You had a question? Somebody? Yeah.
Go ahead, my brother.
You know, it's been such a long time since I wanted to ask the question. I think I can remember it. You know what? You saying a lot of things as far as like share and stock and bonds and you know, don't own anything but be in control of,
that's correct.
Of everything. You know, how do you convey that to people that has been educated? And as you say, you educate your own kids, children. And how do you convey it to people that is very smart as they've been told, but financially illiterate as they've been told that they're financially literate? So how do you convey it? Do you get expensive things to present to them as far as indicating your movement in life? Or how do you know, because you are a person of developing things. You are a creator, according to what I'm hearing you say now. How do you, what are one of your techniques of convincing and conveying to these people that it's all about share, stocks, and bonds?
Well, I've learned, based on the demographic that I target, and there's several demographics I target, but particularly the one that fits the mold of who he just described, which normally is around anywhere between 13 and probably even 35 years old in our community, unfortunately. So I've learned to use what they conceptualize to be a barometer for success. So a lot of it entails marketing after you've achieved. With our people, they don't want to invest or get involved until they see it's actually working for you. That's how we are, you know?
So your way is sharing, showing, exhibiting.
Yeah,
Success.
but the thing is,
Dream of having.
I can show them, like, it's hard to show somebody a successful publishing company that I got. It's hard to show somebody a successful real estate company that I got. Or I would have to really just show them numbers. And those numbers don't really convince people who perception has been molded by sports, music, and entertainment industries. So their barometer for success is, does he drive that $340,000 car?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
So even though I've burnt out a lot of certain desires, I mean, I did acquire the things that I got because I wanted them too when I was young, and it's a form of therapy. Like I tell people, you know, I didn't have much when I came up, and then when I did get things, I compromised my moral integrity to get it. So for me to be in a space in this lifetime where I don't have to do negative things to acquire these things, I needed to get it so I could let it go. But to get back to the point, I understand that the people that I'm looking to reach, the people that I'm personally looking to reach, they want to see the car. You know, I can show them the books and I can break down the knowledge, but I'm just a lot more effective when I show them the $2,000 shoes.
Yeah.
You feel me? I show them the $2,000 shoes or the $400,000 car, and then suddenly it's like we can go to school. So it's believable. Now, hopefully, if we educate that generation, we won't have to do it that way for the generation to come. But right
Right,
now,
see, that's the
they're
thing.
watching TV,
Yeah.
and their barometer for success is the nice car.
Yeah.
Does he have healthy relationships with women or consistent relationships with several women?
Yeah.
So I'm polygynous, so at least I could flip it a certain way. I do drive really expensive cars. At least I could do that. I do wear very expensive clothes from time to time, but sometimes I'm not doing it because this is what I'm into. I've experienced it long enough. I'm good. You know, now it's more of a matter of marketing to the people who see that as
That's the
a
sense I
signature.
get right now. And but some people are turned off. Some people saying, "Hey man, you calling us animals, man." You had that backlash
That's
going
right,
on.
that's
Speak
right.
on that.
Okay, that's great, and I stand by it. You know, I stand totally by it.
Yeah, a lot of y'all some animals. Player T said it.
Let's
Player
just,
T said it. A lot of y'all some animals, man. Straight animals. Animals, baby. Animals. Filthy animals,
Yeah.
baby. Go. For real, baby.
We all do animalistic things.
yeah,
real.
and you know,
Oh.
I'm just going to address that question.
Brother Polight want to address that question real
Yeah,
quick.
so in regard to the animal thing, and I'm not trying to get too sophisticated with it, but you have a part of your brain called the limbic system. This is the mammal part of your
The
brain.
lymphatic system?
Limbic.
Limbic.
It's a part of your brain called the limbic system. It is the monkey brain. That's one of the terms. And then you have, it's the mammal part of your brain. It's just bigger than mammal's brain. And then you have a brain stem, and that's the reptilian brain. This is not pseudoscience. This is actually true. There's a brain stem, and that brain is the reptilian's brain, but just larger in your head. So you actually got more than one brain. And so the reason why this is important is because we say things like, I'm about to go beast mode, or I'll go ape, bro. You keep messing with me. Or we call each other a bitch, a female dog. Like, we like to behave all of a sudden like we have all this high class and we don't want to be associated with animals, but every time we digress and we wind
wanna
up
go beast mode.
upset, we say these terminologies. Now, we're also animals because we're part of the animal kingdom. Now, when I say the remarks about us being animals, when people are lacking in resources in the form of education and finances, again, animals don't need a college degree to survive. It's a different struggle on the streets.
Right.
It's a different struggle on the streets.
Right.
So for me to survive in Brownsville, I had to go animal. I had to go beast mode because I didn't have the knowledge and I didn't have the resources.
Right.
And people are jumping people. People are stealing from people. I have to now tap into the animal parts of my psychology, of my anatomy, of my physiology, of my brain. I don't. What am I going to do with carrying the one over something when there's a gun put to me? You feel what I'm saying? And now I got to live in a community with the people who put the gun to me.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying?
You gotta live with them.
And then you got people here saying, well, you know what? You shouldn't be able to wear that chain that you got on because I'm living bad. So I ain't about to watch another brother live good in front of me. I'm going to take that when I see it. You feel me? There ain't no book going to save me from that kind of mentality.
Right.
So now I got to have a different type of smarts, and I got to tap into a different part of me in order to survive until I can get out this neighborhood or get better information. So I wasn't saying black people are animals. I'm saying we are put in a position to be reduced to a primitive state, in which case we have to behave like animals until we get better information.
Oh!
I remember you were speaking about marriage.
Yeah.
When you were talking about the appreciation and the value. So if you don't go through a corporate way of becoming one with your empress or your spouse, then what is the correct way of doing that to make it official so that you won't have to go through as far as contracting with the state is what I'm speaking about.
Well, I always tell people the right way to do a thing is the direction in which you feel the most benefit, not the way in which it was designed for everyone. So when we talking about marriage, all right, we have the right to marry under our own circumstances. Many of us do not even believe in the religious institutions that we marry under their God under. That's one.
Right.
Two is if I want to divorce my wife after I've married under American law, if I owe too much property taxes, they won't allow me to divorce her. What part of the game is that? That has nothing to do with the hell I may be going through and experiencing. You feel me? So that agreement, I'm not with. Plus, it's a marriage certificate. And again, if it's a certificate, it's a form of a security, which we went over, which means there's some kind of agreement taking place monetarily that I haven't even been involved in, that someone else is benefiting from. All right? So that's one thing right there. Secondly, getting a ring for somebody as Africans of the diaspora living off of the continent. We've been kidnapped here. We can't afford to practice a culture that's been imposed on us without addressing our immediate circumstances and conditions. So what I mean by that is maybe it would have been customary to give a ring to somebody at some point in ancient times. But when you find yourself displaced as a community, we have to change the dynamics of the culture to more properly address our conditions. So we can give a woman a ring that devalues from the time it goes on her finger.
Talk, Brother Polight.
Or we can give her a house so if we break up, she still has a place to live with your child.
Oh!
So we have to change the concept of the dowry. We have to say, you know what? Well, we won't do this, and this is why we teach a new covenant about common customs, which is a calculative system that precipitates culture by process of differentiation and integration. We're able to find the value of smaller things and factorials of those equivalents, thus granting us the least adverse effects from the decisions that we make. This means that when we practice a culture that is foreign from us, we're never the benefactors of the spending. So whether it's Christmas, whether it's Thanksgiving, you can always tell who created the culture because they benefit the most. When you see the Jews celebrate their holidays, they sell the supplies that correspond with those holidays. When the black man and the black woman in America celebrate holidays, we only spend the money. We don't receive nothing back in return. So if we're going to get married, we have to get married under terms and conditions that respond to our diaspora. And in order to do that, we have to say, you know what? We have a horrible living situation taking place in our community. And in fact, a lot of our relationships are flawed and are likely to, there's going to be a breakup, and it's probably going to be because financial burden or strife, particularly in the case of the inconsistency of our housing. So what we have to say now, well, because of the situation we're in, we're going to have to implement certain things that's going to have to be practiced from one generation to the next until we can now divulge into the luxury. We want to get into the luxury of getting together before we get out of the oppression. You feel what I'm saying? So we want to get you the ring. We want to go on the honeymoon. We want to buy the tuxedos, but we're not making the tuxedos. We're not excavating to get those diamonds. We're not making money off of the diamonds. We're not making money off of the regalia that we wear. We're not even owning the halls that we get married in. Right. And we don't run the religious institutions nor make the monies off of the religious institutions that marry us together. So if that be the case, we just need to move all that out the way and find a way to make this thing beneficial to our people. Because when the people practice a culture that they don't financially benefit from, it's a confirmation that it's not their culture.
You study under Dr. Malachi York, which is like one of my greatest heroes. Do you ever see things being able? Do you ever see yourself or anyone being able to put that what he did together, as far as just the language and the books and the culture and the communities and the schools? Do you ever see that being able to happen again?
I think we all have the ability to bring those things to the table. We've never been left alone to ourselves. We've always been given great leadership, and that leadership always had flaws, and rightfully so, because of our history as a people. And so the best thing we can do is look at the flaws from all the leaders and accept the fact all these leaders have flaws and don't spook ourselves out. Right. And find a way to take from their template and implement that which was missing or not addressed during their movements, and see if we could kind of create a collage.
Is that what you're doing with New Covenant?
Yeah, I'm appreciating the works of many of the master teachers like Dr. Sabi, you know, Noble Drew Ali.
Yeah.
You know, we want Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, definitely. We want to take Master Farad Muhammad. We want to take all that we can from everybody who has never left us alone during our most trying times. And let's see if we can put something together that's relevant for this day and time. Like, for instance, I spoke to a real powerful Muslim brother before, and I was just explaining to him that the Quran doesn't address the issues we're going through today immediately. And I use the word immediately because there's always a way to interpret something.
Yeah, to interpret it, make it fit like it.
To make it fit, like that's a suggestion. So
a lot of y'all do that, man.
You know, so I'm telling them, you know, like credit. Like, we talk about credit, and I know a Muslim by nature should be against credit, right? Based on the teachings. However, that has nothing to do with the fact that it does exist. Yeah. So we have to learn the system.
Well,
so we have to get the information outside of the scriptures, whatever the scriptures may be. So this isn't an attack against them. It's just an example that no matter where we go to get the information, we have to understand that whatever era we live in, we may not be able to use all of the methodologies that were employed during the time those things were written. We have to update the information.
Well, you said, you know, it's sometimes cool to suck from the white man titty. The milk ain't always sour. You know what I mean? And that's real talk.
Well, you know, taking away.
You said it, brother. You know, we had to bring
getting away from the little side. I got to get on my Brooklyn shit now.
No
so
doubt.
What part of Brownsville you from, man?
I was at Newport between Amboy and Herzl, and then I stayed on Rockaway Ave at Brownsville Houses.
Well, I called Brownsville my home for like 30 years, Saratoga Ave, Atlantic Avenue.
Oh, man. So
yeah, no doubt.
The 3 train.
Yeah, I used to run with Trigger and Smooth, Trigger the Gambler, Smooth the Hustler.
Oh, wow. I already know those legends.
There you go. There's no doubt. That's all I needed my people to hear.
Hip-hop legends right
there. They don't understand. Hey, no, but yeah, you know what I mean?
We got to address something before Brother Polight leaves, you know, because we really appreciate you being here. One thing a lot of people here getting caught up on, man, that brother got 3 wives. You know, now you
4.
said 4.
I mean, why do people care about that?
Okay, now, well, there's people saying it. You wasn't one of them. Now, they're saying this, but they're hearing all these things from Brother Polight. But Brother Polight, you always speak and you say it's not about having multiple wives. You always say that it's never been about.
That's right.
How did you acquire your wives? Because I heard some of the stories, but I want to hear it strictly from you. How did that happen You know, how did that come about? Because
Once-
we heard like maybe one of your first wife brought some of your other wives on and things of that nature.
Well, yeah, the women always have to pick the new woman that comes in.
Oh!
They always do, because yeah, the woman got to pick them, because you don't want to have somebody come into the house and you be left with them and everybody gone.
Right.
We got children involved.
Right.
We built something very special throughout the course of the past several
How
years.
do you maintain healthy relationships with all your wives?
Doing right by each one. In order to be successful at polygyny, you have to be successful at monogamy. So if you run away from monogamy saying, because I'm a man that needs multiple women, you're going to wind up with multiple problems like you had with the one woman that you couldn't satisfy.
Right. Yeah. Huh? Yeah, that's a very good way, very, very good way to put that. Now, doing right by your wives is so, you know, of course, you're all benefiting from coming together and sharing your knowledge.
That's right.
And sharing everything about yourselves.
That's right.
You know, a lot of people getting caught up in that stigma. With, you know, because I've told women, yeah, you know, one day I'm gonna sit with Brother Polight and ask him questions. Well, that brother got many wives. He just want to have his cake and eat it too.
Yeah,
you know,
and what's wrong with that? If it's my cake, I never understood. If it's my cake, why
Answer
can't I
this
eat
for
it?
the lady. Answer this for the lady, Brother Polight. They want to know, when you get mad at the one wife, how does it go? Do you go in the bedroom and sleep with the next wife?
Well, let's look at it, and I'm not comparing women to children.
Okay.
But what I want to do is, if we look at the analogy for someone that has more than one child, and they say, well, if a man has more than one wife, how can he love both of them? And I say, then why are you making more than one child? How can you love both of them? So if it's possible to love more than one child, it may be possible to love more than one wife. So if you get upset with a child, do you just say, well, you know what? F you, I'm going to start loving my other son? Or do you go through those times and you treat that as a separate and different experience with that person until you heal? And that's the same thing that takes place in polygyny. If you have an issue with a sister, that issue belongs to the both of you.
You take pride in uplifting your sisters.
That's right. And a relationship is an entity in itself. It has to be nurtured. It has to be fed. It has to be given the proper nutrients and the proper attention. That's what a relationship is. It's a entity. It's a child. It's a baby that you don't see. It's incorporeal. But we have to treat it as such, right? So there is no, well, you know what? I'm done with you today. I'm going to deal with this person over here. It is several successful monogamous relationships featuring the same male. And I hear all the questions all the time. You know, what if your daughter wants to, you know, people ask these
You
things.
had to fight the term pimp. You had people that wanted to call you that.
Yeah, and I understand, because it's the only reference point they have of something reminiscent to this working. Anytime you see anything that you're not familiar with, you do your best to compare it to something you do think you understand or know. So why not think about pimping? Most people can't go back into realizing we lived like this before. That's as far back as they can go. So I don't get offended by it. I totally understand it. And I understand who your educator is of black people when you say it. You know what I'm saying? So I get it totally. Yeah, so I don't get upset. At this point, I've heard it all. Like when they say, hey, what about your daughter? You want your daughter to be in a relationship like that?
Yeah.
And I go, right now I'm raising my daughter to be successful. I'm not interested in what kind of relationship dynamic she's going to be in. My job is to properly educate my daughter so I can entrust her when she chooses to make decisions on her own behalf.
Oh! One last question, Brother Polight. If somebody want to patronize your organization, support you, get behind you, maybe even join, how do they reach out and touch you?
Well, they could go to IamBrotherPolight.com. That's Polight. It's an acronym for pride, optimism, love, integrity, gallant, honesty, and trust. They could go to IamBrotherPolight.com. We also have the I Am Brother Polight YouTube channel, or Brother_Polight on Instagram. And then ultimately, you could download my app, Brother Polight. If you download the app, Brother Polight, you'll have access to all the other portals.
Oh, that's dope.
We have an identity crisis going on here. And it seems like the people, the beautiful ladies that you're running into, does not have an identity crisis. And once you eliminate the identity crisis, because we all competitors, you know, husband and wife is competing against each other. And the wife don't know who she is, and the husband forgot who he was, maybe. I don't know what the issue is. I don't have those issues. And I don't have the amount of wives that I don't want to have, because I don't know how to do that. You know, if I knew how to do it, maybe I would be subjected to that. But I doubt it very seriously, because I am a one woman's man. And it's a beautiful thing. It's
That's
just
right.
there is no one there to talk about it.
That's right.
You know, and it's not impressive at all. You know? But it is one of the most beautiful things in the world.
That's right.
So once you identify who you are, a man can date a dog and a woman can date a dog. Just don't have an identity crisis, because you wouldn't stay with that dog and the dog wouldn't stay with you.